Hey, Suzanne, it's all yours.
Hi, well, thank you for having me here on Coffee and Conversation. My name is Suzanne Lapierre, and I'm a librarian at the Virginia Room of the Fairfax County Public Library. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about library services for older adults, what libraries do for older adults, and what older adults do for libraries. And I'll try as much as possible to also talk a little bit about what Arlington Public Library's Local History Center has to offer as well, because I know most of you folks live in Arlington. Um, but we do have a reciprocal arrangement with Arlington and Fairfax County. So Arlington folks can get a Fairfax County library card and vice versa. So let me go ahead and share my screen so you can see my PowerPoint. All right, are you guys seeing that?
No.
Okay, let me try that again.
Not yet.
Okay, I think that might have
Okay.
done it. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, and now I'm in presentation mode. Okay, great. So that is the City of Fairfax Public Library up there on the upper left. That's the library where I work. And the upper level of it is the Virginia Room. Oops, that slide went a little bit more quickly than I was expecting. So the Virginia Room is the entire second floor of the City of Fairfax Public Library. And if you were to come up the stairs from the City of Fairfax Regional Library into the Virginia Room, it would look like this. We also have an elevator, which is not in this picture because this Virginia Room extends beyond what you see here. Over on the left, we've got a bunch of shelving and we've got the elevator where you would come up if you took that route. But as you can see, we have lots of seating. I actually took this after we closed. That's why there's nobody here. There's usually a lot of people in the Virginia Room sitting and studying or using our resources. We have a lot of public computers and we have access to Ancestry database and other history and genealogy databases. We have what you see, those file cabinets over on the right are microfilms. So we have old newspapers and periodicals on microfilm, and behind those file cabinets are the microfilm readers where you can view microfilm. We have maps, we have all kinds of resources that you can just browse. So this is our open area. It's open all the same hours that the library is open, which is 7 days a week, at least 10 to 6, and Monday through Wednesday we're open till 9. So we have quite robust hours, and you don't need to make an appointment to use the Virginia Room. You can just walk in. Now in Arlington, you have the Charlie Clark Center for Local History, and it's very similar to the Virginia Room. So you're going to have maps pertaining to history and genealogy. Of course, yours will be more focused on Arlington and ours is more focused on Fairfax County, but we also have materials from all over Virginia, all over the country. We have genealogy material from all 50 states, and we have materials pertaining to other countries as well, because of course, when folks are tracing their genealogy, they come from all over. So we have a lot of different history and genealogy materials, but we do focus on Fairfax County. So the closer your history or genealogy research is to Fairfax County, the more we're going to have for you. And the same for the Charlie Clark Center for Local History in Arlington. So we are a history and genealogy research center within a public library. Our materials can't be checked out, but most of them can be browsed in this public area. So if you were to walk up to the information desk, it would look like that picture at the top right. That's where you can go and ask for help while you're in the Virginia Room. And below that picture, you see our Memory Depot. Our Memory Depot station is where folks can bring photos, slides, negatives, VHS tapes, and convert them to digital. So you do need you should make an appointment for that. And there's also a online tutorial as well as in-person tutorials that teach you how to use the equipment, because it's a self-service station. And then you sign up for a 3-hour slot and you just come in and use the equipment. So that's what is there on the lower right. So as I mentioned before, we have the computer databases, we have maps, periodicals, old directories, atlases, we have the microfilm, and all of these are our open shelving browsable materials. But in the next slide, I'm going to show you our rare books room. So this is a room where we have books that are more rare or fragile that we don't have out for the public. We have directories. We have over 600 school yearbooks of public and private schools all over Fairfax County, and we're always welcoming more donations to that collection, hoping to have as many available for people as possible because it's a very popular collection. We have photo collections and manuscript collections, and those you'll see mostly on the right there in those archival boxes. So people can look at these materials. They just have to ask at that desk that I showed you on the previous slide. So if you're looking in our catalog, and most of these materials are cataloged. So if you see something in our catalog that says it's in the rare books room, just ask us and we will bring it out for you to look at. Just a few
Suzanne, I
little.
have a question about
Oh,
uh, can people digitize cassette tapes and 33 RPM records at the Memory Depot? And what about CDs and floppy disks?
so currently we do have equipment for floppy disks. We had cassette tape converters, but the one that we had was broken and had to be replaced. So I'm not sure we have that at the moment. Oh, I also wanted to mention that we have these Memory Depot stations at many of our regional libraries throughout Fairfax County. So the Virginia room had the first one, but now they are in several different libraries. So you might want to check on our website and see which one is closest to you. And you can also call and just be sure that we have if you want something besides VHS, photo slides and negatives, just call to make sure that we have that, because we are getting new equipment to digitize more materials, but some of that is in flux. So if you don't see it listed when you go to sign up for a slot, you can call and see if we have it, or if it's something that we're going to be getting in the immediate future or whatnot.
And a
We are hoping
follow-up
to get more
question,
equipment. Yeah.
there's a follow-up question. What kind of equipment do you have to convert pictures or slides to a digital format? You just scanning them into like a
It's a
PDF format?
scanner. Yeah, it's a scanner, and we also have special software that helps to scan the material more efficiently. So we have two different stations. One is for photos and negatives. That's the one with the scanner and slides. And the other one is for the VHS tapes. And then we have the handheld converter for the floppy disks. And we used to have a handheld machine for the cassette tapes. But as I mentioned, we have to get that one replaced. It stopped working. But yeah, we're hoping to also get additional equipment. So just you can always check with us or call and make sure that what you're interested in is available, or see which branch it's available at, because we do have these Memory Depot stations at numerous branches. One of them, I think, did have the LP transfer capability, one of the branches. So you can check on our website. If you go to our website and put in Memory Depot as keyword search, you'll see, you can learn all about it. So I just wanted to show you a few little things we have in the Virginia room. First of all, that's Charlie Clark in the upper left. He's the person that your local history center in Arlington is named after, and he has written many books about Arlington history. We had him come to our Virginia room numerous times to give talks about his books and talks about history. Great guy. And we also, I just thought this was funny, this photo of our tiniest book that we have in the collection, this little 2-inch book called Letter to Bushrod, is our smallest book in the collection. In the middle here, you might be wondering why there's a cracked corn bag, but we have a collection of grain and flour mill bags from mills throughout Fairfax County. And there's actually this whole interesting history about how the flour bags were used to make clothing by many people in the Great Depression. And during World War II, the fabric for clothing was rationed, but flour bag cloth, cloth that was for industrial use like that, was not rationed. So many people would make clothing out of the flour bags. And so the mills started competing to see, to get more business by having the nice designs on their flour bags that people wanted to buy. So even after the mills started making paper bags instead of cloth bags, they still had cool designs on them. Most of the ones we have are paper, but they have all these different interesting designs, and many of these mills don't exist anymore. So we have that collection. And I made a little exhibit of them. And so this one with the wolf on it, I thought was kind of cool. But just to show you, we have some different things in the collection as well, other than books and maps and things. But we also have photographs, as I mentioned earlier. There's a photo up top there of the Route 7 gas station in Herndon that doesn't exist anymore, but there is another gas station there now. And the fellow down on the lower right, he was just donated to us, and we haven't been able to identify who he is. But that is a solar enlargement, and some of you might have photos like this in your personal collection of ancestors. It is dates from the late 1800s when they couldn't enlarge a photo to wall hanging size without losing a lot of resolution. So they would enlarge the photo, and then an artist would touch it up with graphite. So it's a combination of drawing and photography, really. So I always find those kind of interesting. So as I mentioned briefly, the Arlington residents are eligible for a library card from Fairfax County Public Library. We have a reciprocal arrangement. However, you don't need a library card with Fairfax County to attend our programs and events, and you don't need one to use most of the resources in the Virginia room. Mainly, you need it if you're going to check out materials or log into certain databases. But we also have a guest pass for logging into databases. So really, you mostly need the library card to check out materials physically or digitally through the Libby app, ebooks and things like that. But you might want to get a card because also Arlington and Fairfax County, we have different digital databases that we subscribe to. So if you have a reciprocal card, you can use both if there's something Fairfax County has that Arlington doesn't have, or vice versa. So who are older adults? The AARP and the Fairfax County Senior Centers define older adults as people over 50. That would include me. The American Library Association has traditionally defined older adults as people 60 and up in the past, but they have a newly formed Elder Justice Task Force, which is focusing on people over 65. So there's a lot of variety here. If you're talking about people 50 and up, you're talking about, half of the population age-wise. I'm in my 50s, but until a few years ago, my dad was still around and he was in his 90s. So there's a lot of us can fall into that category of older adults. And many older adults are still very active. Many have children at home still, or they're taking care of their parents. Many of us in our 50s and 60s might be taking care of our parents who are in their 80s and 90s. So we can be in the sandwich generation. And we can still be working full time and also taking care of people in our families. So there's those folks. And statistically, most people over 65 in the US are retired. And that percentage actually increased during the pandemic when a lot of folks decided, maybe it was a good time to retire. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But older adults also includes a lot of folks who might be experiencing physical challenges and memory issues and needing more assistance, especially when folks get into their 80s and 90s and so forth. And many older adults live in assisted living homes or residential care homes. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. So what does that mean for the needs of older adults as opposed to, say, just adults in general? Well, people who are retired might be in a position to attend more library programs and be able to take advantage of their library more than they were when they were working. So many of our volunteers are older adults. We find in the Virginia room that a lot of older adults, after they retire, they finally have time to do that history or genealogy research that they've been interested in. And often they come to the Virginia room and use our resources to do their research projects. Some of them are even writing a book. Also, we have many retired adults who might be looking for activities to add structure to their day. I met one of our volunteers recently, and he told me that he just wanted to make sure that when he retired, that he was still going to have, some structure to his day, and he wanted to do something to support literacy and education in his community, and that's why he decided to volunteer at our library. We also have folks who, since they're retired, they might be a little bit more isolated than they used to be. So they might be looking for opportunities to socialize, make new connections. And people with physical and memory challenges can become especially isolated, especially if they can't drive as much as they used to or at all, and they're maybe not working anymore. So I think we need to make an effort in outreach to reach those people who maybe can't drive to the library or come into the library, and also might not have high-speed wireless internet access. I know from when my parents were in assisted living that the wireless was not really great where they lived. So, you had to go out in the hallway or had to go into a public room to get better connection. So it didn't work as well in their private rooms. So it can be, there can be a little bit, that can be an isolating factor for folks who are in some assisted living or residential care homes. And for that reason, I would like to see libraries doing more in-person outreach to those places. Library outreach to assisted living or residential care homes can include traditional book clubs, or maybe read aloud stories for folks who maybe don't want to read an entire book or have trouble reading an entire book and remembering it. We could read a short story or poem out loud and talk about it. Just like the regular library, we could have guest speakers come, or something that's becoming increasingly popular, which I'll talk about in a bit, is memory programs. Also, older adults are a huge asset to our libraries. So many of our library volunteers are older adults, especially retired people. Many of our Friends of the Library group members and leaders of our Friends of the Library groups are older adults. We have a Friends of the Library group for the Virginia Room, and we have a Friends of the Library group for the City of Fairfax Regional Library. Older adults also tend to be avid library users, and many of our staff members are older adults. I read a couple of different studies about the average age of librarians, and one said 47 and one said 50. So if that's the average age of librarians, that means we have a lot of librarians and library staff people who are in the older adult category as well. And many of our library board members also. So here are some of our Virginia Room volunteers processing a huge collection of negatives that we got as part of our Quentin Porter collection. He was a local photographer who did a lot of photography in the area in the 40s through the 70s, and we were given this huge donation of his work, including 66,000 negatives. And so these volunteers took it upon themselves to organize this collection so that it would be more useful for researchers. And it took them years to organize the collection, but as you can see, they enjoyed doing it. So it was a great service to our community to make this collection more accessible to users and researchers. So what is the library doing to give back to older adults? Well, there are all kinds of programs at Fairfax County Public Library and Arlington Public Library. And if you go to the website and then click on events, you can search by what Fairfax County calls older adults, Arlington Public Library calls good for adults 55 plus. And you'll see we have programs on yoga, Tai Chi, various kinds of dance, international dance, knitting, learning different languages, philosophy, 3D printing, and other tech programs. And at the Virginia Room, we have a lot of history and genealogy programs, and we find that those are very well attended by older adults. We have a monthly walk-in genealogy program, which is the third Monday of every month in the evening. And folks can just walk in and ask whatever family history programs they have. It is hosted by members of the Fairfax County Genealogical Society. So they're there, and it's very open-ended. People can just walk in and ask for help with their research. We also have a local history book club that is virtual over Zoom. So it's also in the evening, but folks who don't like to maybe drive in the evening and prefer virtual programs, we have those. As I mentioned, you don't have to be a Fairfax County resident to attend any of our programs. We have author talks, like I mentioned, Charlie Clark. We had him multiple times. And Arlington has those memory programs, which I was talking about. They have on a weekly basis at Walter Reed. We'll talk more about those in a little bit, but they have art classes, gardening classes, meditation, fix-it clinics. We also have these at Fairfax. This is where you can bring in items that you have at home and have somebody help you fix them, whether it's a toaster or maybe a piece of jewelry that broke. We have, volunteers who like fixing those things come in and help people. And I just think that's a neat program. Keep things out of landfills and fix up old things that are still good, that are still going to be good once they get fixed. Oldies are goodies. So the Arlington Local History Center has monthly open houses. And the next one is this coming Saturday, June 7th, from 10 to noon. And you don't need to register. You can just show up for their open house. There will also be one in July and August if you can't make that one this Saturday. So check out your local Charlie Clark Center for Local History and see what they have. In Fairfax County, we have a special branch called Access Services, and that branch is devoted to serving people with disabilities. So they administer the Talking Books program, which is a nationwide program via the Library of Congress, but local libraries help connect their users to this service. So this is a service where you can get audiobooks either digitally, or they will send you a device, and then they send you cartridges that you put in the device to listen to audiobooks. And it's the device and the cartridges are designed for people who are blind or have low vision to be able to use. It can also be used by people who have other physical challenges that make it hard to read physical books. Like my mother had Parkinson's disease, and it was just hard for her to turn pages because it's a movement disorder. So she was signed up for this program. She had the device and the books, and it's totally free. So they send you these cartridges, and when you're done listening to the audiobook, there's a prepaid mailer. You just stick it in there and put it in the mailbox, and it goes back, and you get new ones, and it's totally free. You do have to qualify. So you have to have a doctor or a librarian or anybody who's on the list of qualified people to state that you have a disability that makes it difficult for you to read traditional books. And then you can be signed up for that program through your local library system. So our Access Services branch coordinates all of that. And they also have a home delivery program where people can get materials delivered to their home. There's less of a criteria for that. You basically just have to state that you need it. You don't need a doctor to verify that you have a disability. They also have collections of Braille and large print books and other special materials for people with disabilities, special formats. They have digital Zoom magnifiers that can be borrowed. Those help a lot of people read. They're much more strong than a regular magnifying glass. And they also have different color, you can change the color combinations, and that helps a lot of people that have some kind of visual disability. Oh, so in Arlington, they don't have a separate branch for that. I mean, Arlington's a lot smaller than Fairfax County, so they don't actually have a separate physical branch for it, but they offer a lot of these same services. So just, talk to your local library staff if you need any of these services, and I'm sure Arlington Public Library can hook you up as well. So I mentioned the memory programs a little bit earlier. These are programs that a lot of libraries around the country are launching to include folks in the community who have memory issues. They can also be just for older adults who enjoy reminiscing, or they can be for people experiencing dementia. There's a variety of different kinds of memory programs. There is a former librarian named Mary Beth Reidner who started this Tales and Travel Memories program. I put the website in there if anybody wants to check it out. She, many years ago, she piloted a lot of these memory programs, but during the pandemic, she decided to do kind of a virtual memory program for people. And she put together a series of Let's Visit videos that are YouTube videos that are virtual trips to different states and countries. So you'll be, you'll be watching it as if you're taking a trip to Morocco or Savannah. And they can be just done as a remote program, or they can be combined with in-person experiences, like tasting the food from that country or state, and maybe doing a craft or listening to music from that country or state. My mother-in-law is in an assisted living facility where every month they have a different country that they're highlighting. And it does happen to be Morocco this month. And so they'll have food from Morocco and music from Morocco, and they'll watch movies from Morocco. And I just think it's a fun idea and great way to keep learning. So folks with memory issues can still be readers, and many of them are still reading and they still enjoy reading. So reading programs can also be an idea for people with memory issues. Maybe a shorter material rather than reading an entire book and discussing it. We can have programs where we read aloud a story, like a story cafe. Some places call them story cafes, and participants can take turns maybe reading short stories or folk tales or poetry, and then maybe talking about that poem or that short story. Another idea that some libraries are doing is they have memory kits, and you can check out these kits, and there'll be a book or a story, and then tactile objects and maybe some music or a craft to go with the theme. So the theme could be like cooking or handyman skills, or even something more general like wild animals or wintertime. And those can be a great way for families that have somebody, if you have somebody with dementia in your family, the family can work on those kits together and talk about these themes and enjoy these things together. Another idea that many libraries are doing, including Arlington, are memory cafes, where people can come to a library program, but it's a little bit less overwhelming than a library program for the general public, maybe like in a cozier room with some nice seating and some coffee and tea being served, and people can have coffee and conversation like we're doing right now, maybe some music. And those memory cafes are becoming popular so that folks with memory problems can, to get out and socialize. And many of them, they can feel isolated if they're just staying at home. So what is the future going to bring? Well, my dream, and this is a caveat I have to add, is that, with IMLS funding in jeopardy right now, we might actually have to scale back on a lot of programs. So I certainly can't promise that this is the future, but this is what I and many other people would like to see happen in libraries. Is I would love to see techmobiles where library, we all know about bookmobiles, right? And we think of bookmobiles as bringing books to kids, which is great. Bookmobiles also traditionally have brought books to people in rural areas or people who for whatever reason would have a harder time reaching the library. Well, I would love to see this happen, but they would be techmobiles to help people use their devices. A lot of folks in assisted living homes or residential care homes, like my parents, they might have a little trouble using their devices or accessing the library website or learning how to use ebooks. It would be great if we could just help them make sure that they are able to use their devices, that they can learn new skills, that they know how to log on to a virtual program or use audiobooks, and maximize the services that are available to them digitally. So these techmobiles could also deliver books and people who do in-person programs. I would love to see that happen in the future. I hope that is in our future. One thing that I'm more confident I can say this is definitely going to be the future of libraries and also other public spaces is universal design is a buzzword these days. This means shaping both physical and digital spaces for everyone, so they're accessible for everyone, and recognizing that people without disabilities benefit from the same kind of accessibility measures that benefit people with disabilities. So if you have a ramp, that might be useful for somebody who's pushing a baby stroller as well as somebody who's in a wheelchair. Automatic doors help people who are carrying armfuls of books as well as helping people who are using a cane. Even in the digital world, how many of us have used our screen modification features to make the text bigger or change the contrast of the text? I mean, that helps everybody, but it's really essential for people with low vision to be able to modify the font, the size, the color combinations, so that they can view the screen more easily. But we find, like in the Virginia room, we have people who forgot their glasses. So it's not just people with low vision or a vision disability. You know, anybody can forget their reading glasses or just need a little help seeing things better. So these kind of accessibility features help everybody. Another thing some libraries are doing is having calming spaces that help people with sensory issues, including people with autism or other conditions that make them more sensitive to sound and light. But those can also be used by anyone who's experiencing stress and is like, wow, I really need a quieter place to be, or I have a headache, I need a room that has softer lighting, these things. So in the future, libraries and other public spaces, as well as digital spaces, are going to have more of this universal design for accessibility. I feel pretty confident in saying that. And I can show you actually a couple of examples here. Universal design is also beautiful, can be beautiful, you know. Here you see this fellow on the left using the ramp to bring his bicycle into the building. So that ramp could also be for folks in wheelchairs, or like I mentioned, folks pushing a baby stroller, or maybe, you know, you just have a bad knee that day, you know, so they can benefit everyone. And they can, I've seen some beautiful like spiral designs where the ramps are really a beautiful part of the architecture. Think of the Guggenheim, you know, that spiral design. Over here on the right, you see a library in Australia, and you see all those little sort of cubby holes that some people are sitting in. I mean, those are especially good for kids who maybe have sensory issues and they need to feel like they're in a smaller, cozier space. But they're also good for anybody who just feels like, hey, this is a fun place to sit. And, you know, maybe my toddler's a little cranky that day because he's tired or hungry, and that's a more soothing sort of place for him to sit. Some branches, as I mentioned, especially academic libraries, seem to be doing this, where they have a whole room with softer lighting and so forth for people who need to get away from the big, noisy part of the library. So just various things we can do to sort of integrate accessibility into our libraries and public spaces. Definitely going to be an increasing trend in the future. So thank you for listening today, and I am here to answer any questions or listen to your comments.
Okay, well, we've got a number of questions and comments. First one is somebody that's inherited a large collection of photos from the late 19th and early 20th century. Um, Many of them are unidentified. She's asking who in the library could she talk to that would help sort these things out.
So if you're interested in donating your photos, you would want to speak to the manager at the Arlington Local History Center. If you live in Fairfax County, you would speak to our Virginia room manager. His name is Chris Barbershak, and he could tell you whether the photographs are something that we might be interested in adding to the collection. I'm not clear on whether the person just wants help organizing the material for themselves or whether they're thinking they might want to donate it.
Well, I think she wants initially just to understand what she's got,
Okay.
and then maybe make a decision later what to do with them.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't really have a formal program for like sort of assessing collections or that kind of thing. That's actually a good idea for a program, something like Antique Roadshow style, where people bring in items to show us and sort of get an idea of what how to organize. Oh, well, that does remind me though. We have if they are your family photos, we actually have a program that's starting in the fall that is going to be a beginner genealogy program that's going to help people sort through their genealogy material and get started on their genealogy. So like if those were your family photos, that might be something that like the beginner genealogy program would sort of be able to give you some ideas of how to sort through that material and organize it and preserve it and so forth.
Okay, next, talking about reciprocal library cards, Steve has posted in the chat all of the different areas around here where you can get reciprocal library card. I'm not going to read them all out, but it's pretty much the entire DC
Yeah.
area, Maryland and Virginia.
Mhm. Basically, if we share a boundary, we have a reciprocal arrangement. So with Montgomery County, DC, Loudoun County, Arlington County, we all have reciprocal arrangements. Yeah.
Steve has also pointed out that Arlington Public Library has two book clubs aimed at 55 and older adults. Next question is, do any of the Fairfax libraries provide access to the foundation directory online so that people who are looking for possible grant opportunities, things like that, can get access to it? She said Arlington used to provide that, but they no longer do. Do you know
I
if,
think that we do, but I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. But if you go to the Fairfax County Public Library website and then on the left menu, choose research tools and then databases, you can see all of the databases that we subscribe to as a library system.
okay. We've also got a comment here. Arlington has a really interesting program where you can actually check out human beings and have conversations with people that are, whose lives are very different from your own.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's called
he
the Human
says,
Library. Yeah.
right. One of our friends wanted to check out an imam, but they were overbooked. So he ended up speaking to a gender fluid person, said it was one of the most interesting conversations they've ever had. So that's definitely something worth looking at.
I love that idea. We have done that in Fairfax County Public Library as well. It's called the Human Library, and it's a program that can be used by any library. And yeah, you check out a person instead of checking out a book, and it can be somebody living with HIV, or somebody who's an identical twin, or somebody who retired from the Air Force, or whatever, maybe a person who has a different life experience than you do, and just talk to them and learn. I would love to. I haven't actually tried it, but I think it's a great idea.
Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of services and resources are available to older people with limited English language skills?
Oh, great. Thank you for bringing that up. We have at the Fairfax County Public Library, we have what we call English conversation partners. And they are folks who help. So they're volunteers and people of any age. Well, they do have to be adults of any age who have at least a little bit of English language under their belts, come in and have a conversation with this person that just helps them increase their fluidity with the language. So we have that. We have English conversation partners. They can be signed up. They're one-on-one. And then we have English conversation groups where people come in and they just, it's a whole group of people come in and have conversations, and they're all people who are learning English. None of them are specifically for older adults, although frankly, a lot of our volunteers for these programs that run these programs are older adults. And we also have citizenship classes for folks who are studying for their citizenship exams. Those used to be in person. Now they are also remote. So yeah, and I'm sure Arlington is doing some similar things like that. We don't call it classes because that is like overselling what we can do with volunteers. Like it's not an English class where you can go from, zero to fluency in a matter of months, but it's more of again, conversation partners, we call it, like somebody to talk to in English, increase your fluidity. Yeah, and I'm sure Arlington has a similar program.
Yeah, we've got a comment here that Arlington County does have English conversation classes and to check their website. Uh, Next comment here is another option for digitizing various types of media is the Martin Luther King Central Library in DC, that it's in one of their labs, information on their website, and it's free to use as well. And the next question here is, if a person wants to volunteer at a library, what's the application process? Are they able to choose what area they want to work? Do they need specific skills?
Yeah, there's a volunteer portal where positions that are in need are advertised, and in the fall we're going to be advertising a lot more positions that we need folks for, like English conversation partners. In the Virginia room, we are a little bit more, we're very tiny staff in the Virginia room. So it's a little bit more informal. You could contact our branch manager, Chris Barbashock, or if you're in Arlington, contact the manager of the Arlington Local History Center and see if they need a volunteer for a specific project. Definitely, if you have particular skills, like I mentioned, the fix-it clinics, people who can fix certain kinds of items could volunteer for one of the fix-it clinics. That would be great. But we also have other volunteer jobs that you don't have to have any particular skills for.
Okay, we've got a comment here. For the person interested in identifying old photos, it said she's just scanned lots of slides and physical photos and found that there's an image tool in Google that was able to identify nearly all of the places in her ancient photos. So
Yeah,
you might want to
that's
take a look at that.
you can get an app for that too. It's called Google Lens, Lens, and you show it a picture and it shows you matches online. So that's good for all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Somebody wanted to ask how often you have to renew the Fairfax County library cards.
Oh, so if you have a reciprocal card, it is good for a year. So you will need to renew it more frequently than you would with your card for the county that you live in.
Okay. We've got a comment. There's a tour of the Arlington County Makerspace in the Central Library, June 23rd at 2 o'clock. And having done that, that's a really interesting place. They've got 3D printers, all kinds of hand tools. That's where a lot of the stuff for scanning and digitizing media are located. So if you've never been up there, that's well worth a visit. I don't know that we've got other questions. If I missed anything, please speak up.
Yeah, Gary, this is Cheryl. What I was going to ask you, Suzanne, is are there organizations in the community, and I'm not only just thinking about Fairfax or Arlington, but, just in general, in terms of libraries, are there organizations in the community that libraries would like to partner with to kind of broaden your scope and maybe some new programs? You mentioned about the future and universal design and technology and that. But, the library is just such an important community resource. And it's kind of like, what are you missing? What would you like to do that doesn't necessarily require more funding, but more partnerships where you bring in more people and provide more information or resources or services to the community, particularly older adults? Any thoughts?
Yes, well, as I mentioned, I would love to see more in-person outreach to assisted living and residential living facilities for folks in those facilities, often older people, but also people with disabilities. I would love to see more outreach to them. Of course, it's not necessarily funding, but it's staff, and staff is funding. So that's one thing that's a little bit of a problem, is that we tend to be very short staffed. But another issue, I did try in the past to call some of our local residential assisted living facilities and ask if, we could come and do some of these programs. And a lot of them were just kind of like, well, we have our own activity coordinators, or our people are very active. They can go to the library if they want to, that kind of thing. So we do have some assisted living facilities that some of our libraries do regular programs with, but I feel like there could be more connection there. I feel like there are folks in those living situations who would really benefit from somebody from the library coming. And like both of my parents were in assisted living or residential care facilities towards the end of their lives, and they loved those library programs. Funny, my dad was very highly educated, but he wasn't really the kind of avid library user like my mom was, but he just loved this library guy who would come I don't remember if it was once a week or once a month. This was in Portland, Maine. But most of the other programs there, he wasn't interested in but being an intellectual guy, even though he didn't read the book, he would go to those programs because the man who came from the library was just so interesting and well-educated and articulate. And he was just interested in the topics that were being discussed. And so that was a great program for him. And, my mom had always been an avid reader. And even when she couldn't because she had Parkinson's disease, even when she couldn't read a book very easily anymore, if you put a book in her hands, she would just light up oh yeah, I remember this one. I think I read this one, books are just so important. Those of us who love books, and libraries, it's a lifelong enhancement to our lives. And I just would like to make sure that folks who are older and have more disabilities are still be able to benefit from their library services. So hopefully in the future, we'll have more, cooperation there.
Yeah, and
Both
one
ways.
other thing too, in terms of services, for example, at Arlington, and perhaps it is in Fairfax, I know during tax season, representatives from AARP come over and do taxes for older adults maybe who can't afford a formal tax preparer. Is that also an example of something that Fairfax and other libraries do as well, and maybe other things similar to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I had kind of forgotten about that, but yes, we do have those programs where we partner with the AARP volunteers and also the VITA tax program, which I think is specifically for people. There's an income limit to participate in that, but AARP will help people of any age. They do give priority to older adults, but I use them. They're it's a free service. They help you with their with your taxes. The only people that can't use that are if you have very complicated taxes, like you own multiple properties or something like that, then they can't help with that. But most people, they can help with their taxes. So yeah, that's a great example of a partnership, because often people come to us and they ask tax questions, and we're not, we are not trained to give tax help, and it's a liability for us to, try and possibly, make a mistake. So having people who are specifically trained to help people with tax work is that's a great service for older adults and really to anybody.
Right.
It's another example of universal accessibility, something that helps older people or people with disabilities. It's also going to help anybody, people who are busy, people who don't have time to do their taxes on their own, or they've just never done it themselves before and they want somebody else to give them a little help, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Gary,
Suzanne, when you were talking about the future and what you hope to see, you made an allusion to uncertainties in funding. And this person wants to know, are you concerned that libraries are in danger of becoming obsolete or having to downsize, in part because of that, or also because of developments in AI and tech in general?
Well, I will say we are definitely not becoming obsolete. Come to my library. It is packed all day, every day until we close at 9:00. People love to have someplace to go. It's a third place that's not their home or work. And we have people studying in the library all day. We have people who hang out in the library from when it opens at 10:00 till when we close at 6 or 9:00. We have meeting rooms that people can use for free. So if you have a civic association or your own book club and you want to use our meeting rooms, you can use our meeting rooms. Those are super popular. They're mostly booked, but you can book online. and see what the availability is. People thought when ebooks came around that people, we weren't going to have books people weren't going to read books anymore. But even my kid, when he was in college, like he was a computer science major, but he still preferred to use a paper book. He just liked paper books, so we have paper books and we have ebooks. It's like we have elevators and we have stairs. It's just different options. People like to have choices. So definitely not becoming obsolete, but funding is definitely a problem. There certain political changes are, probably going to impact our funding. The IMLS funds the state libraries, and the state libraries help fund local library programs. So, for example, I mentioned our yearbooks, our collection of 600 local yearbooks. We had been in the process of digitizing them through the Library of Virginia. And so when they're digitized, they're available to people all over the country. You can flip through them just like you flip through a regular book. But the advantage is you can use keyword search to find certain people or events that you're looking for. So it was a great program. That was actually funded by an IMLS grant. So currently we can't do that anymore because of the cuts to the IMLS. They were also digitizing World War II records, and so that's also been cut. So we're already losing services that benefited people due to the IMLS cuts. But so yeah, it's definitely a concern. But we will keep providing as many services as we can, and we're always adding new services. That's another reason why libraries are not becoming obsolete, because we're always adding more and keeping up with technology and keeping up with the kinds of things that people want to be able to do either online or in person. So yeah, did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. But it raised another question. What does IMLS stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And it's a
Right.
federal program. So it's a federal program, but it provides grants to, for example, rural areas where there's not great digital connectivity. They provide grants that can extend digital access for people in what they call digital deserts, where people aren't getting good service. That's just one thing. Another thing would be, like I mentioned, digitizing yearbooks, digitizing World War II records, digitizing records that are in paper form, but they haven't been made available digitally or online yet, so that people can do research from anywhere, in the country and not have to necessarily come to the Virginia room to see what we have on paper. So tons of programs like that are funded by the IMLS. And I don't think in Fairfax County and Arlington County, we're going to be hurt by those cuts as much as people elsewhere in the country. But because we have a robust local tax base that helps support our libraries. But there are parts of the country where they don't have much of a local tax base, and they're really going to be hurting if they lose the federal funding.
All right. Well, we're almost at 11 o'clock, and I wanted to maybe finish with Liz's comment. Don't forget the 4th of July parade, where the City of Fairfax Regional Library's Precision Library Cart Drill Team will be on the march, the oldest library cart drill team in the country.
Oh, yes. And you can see Liz and I in the parade. Liz and I are going to be in the parade.
And
Carrying the banner.
I was just going to ask you when you said IMLS, I was writing that down. What does the M stand for?
Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Okay, Museum and Library Services. Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much. I may be in touch with you because I realize that I also am the host for and producer of a radio and TV show called Aging Matters. And I haven't done anything on library services in some time. So this renewed my interest in, and especially since you could be talking about not only in this area, but around the country as well. So that's why I did get your email address and may be in touch with you.
Oh, sounds great.
Okay. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you again, Suzanne, for older adults and public libraries information. This has been very helpful. And be sure and tune in next week, June 11th, when we will be talking about Eco Action Arlington. And it looks like Director Eleanor Hodges and Tree Canopy Program Outreach Manager Kisha Songuro we'll talk about tree planting programs in Arlington. So sounds like an information that you might be interested in learning more about.